Hello everybody, welcome to Aviation Business Series. So today we are in a very important office. We are speaking to Mr. Peter Addai. As you are aware, I told you to get ready and I hope you are ready, but I'm very glad that you are joining us today. We had to actually pre-record because we want to bring you the best footage. I would want to say that thank you for always staying with us. And today, what are we talking about? Today, we want to listen from the perspective of somebody who has been here from Ghana Airways time, and he has been relevant from those years up until now. And it looks like he's getting ready to even become more relevant than what he was before. So today, I have the privilege to speak to an airline management consultant, founder and CEO of Travelex Limited. Welcome, Mr. Peter Addai.
Thank you very much. And it's good to have you here today.
Great. I'm actually loving the scene that you have whenever you come to the office. I can see the airport and it's lovely because it looks like it reminds you of work every time.
Yes, that is what we do. So it's always good to be in a position to look at the environment that keeps you going.
Wow.
So
How are you doing?
God has been merciful. I'm doing very well.
So today we are very happy to have you with us. Aviation Business Series we started not too long ago, but we are always about educating, inspiring, and also bringing opportunities to our audience. And we know that you are a veteran. I mean, you are that professional who has been there. Name it, Airline Management Consultancy, you know. Cargo, you know. Operations, you are there. What else? I mean, the whole industry you have been through, how has your journey been like, sir?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I must say that it's been a very long period in this industry, starting from the fundamentals and getting to the areas of management. I have gone through series of stages and I'm happy where it has brought me at the moment.
Great. But with this COVID-19, what happened to you? Was everything okay? What was the experience?
Well, let me say that the COVID-19 pandemic has been a major problem and its impact for virtually all business entities. The aviation industry has been hardly hit. It's really having a very negative effect on businesses. But again, there's also the positive aspect of it, which I believe stakeholders in this industry will want to take advantage of. So we have to look at the pandemic in its negative and positive aspects.
Okay. But when you talk about the pandemic in its positive aspect, so in the beginning of this month, we decided to talk about aviation and the new relevance. And one of the questions that really comes to mind is why it's important for industry players to name themselves, to understand the job that they are doing. What's your take on understanding the job that we do?
Well, in the first place, this is an industry which is global, and therefore any stakeholder, player in this industry should look at it from a global perspective. I must say that the positive aspect of this pandemic is the fact that currently there is a glut, there is an oversupply of capacity, and for any industry player, especially those who are setting themselves up, this is the best time to lease aircraft and position yourself in the industry. Because of the glut, there are a lot of aircraft available for leasing at a lower rate than before the pandemic. And then again, globally, the cost of fuel has also gone down. And so if anybody is thinking of initiating the operation of the airline business, perhaps this is the best time, because you are likely to get a very good rate for leasing the aircraft, and aviation fuel is also on a little bit on the lower side, and so initiating the business at this point keeps your costs lower. The first cost, you start with the lower expenses, and so you are able to position yourself very well before the industry comes back to normalcy, where the cost level would really go higher than it is at the moment.
What you are just saying is reminding me, there was a conference recently, virtual conference, and most of the players got to speak about the fact that it is a time where the whole industry stops, and we get the chance to revive ourselves. We get the chance to see how we want this industry to be. So it comes back to your point where if Ghana, for instance, we are ready to start an airline, then this is the right time.
Yeah, I guess this is the right time, because with virtually the cost level being at its lowest ebb, it is really the right time to kickstart the whole business in Ghana, especially where information is that we want to revive a national airline. But beyond that, usually people are very skeptical, especially African countries, are very skeptical in initiating the airline business, because it has been the bane of most sub-Saharan African countries. I guess we have to take advantage of the pandemic and kickstart the business now.
So, but when you hear from somebody like you who has been in the industry for long, before I even zoom into the national airline, why is it important for us to have a national airline? I'm a student. Why is it important? I'm a business owner. Help me to understand it from the perspective of somebody who's not a professional. What is the benefit?
Well, the first and foremost thing is that the airline business is very, very significant. As a matter of fact, the significance of the airline business can never be overemphasized.
Okay.
Because it is the key barometer to develop a country. In much the same way, the economic benefits of the airline business will not be complete if, as a nation, we do not have an airline to play that significant role that we need to. We can have all the technical equipment and all the services in place. But if we don't operate, a greater portion of the business will not bring us the benefit that we're looking for. By this, I'm saying that we can have the aviation industry in Ghana working with our Ghana Civil Aviation, Ghana Airports. They will only put in place all the necessary steps for foreign carriers to take advantage of. Why would we not have a national airline which can give us all the benefits that we deserve as a nation?
Mr. Addai, you have been here, you started off with the Ghana Airways, right?
Yes.
In which year?
I think if my memory serves me right, I joined Ghana Airways in the year 1978.
1978. Wow. Okay. And after that, what happened? What was your journey like?
Now, from Ghana Airways, I set up the Travelex as a travel consultancy firm. And so we were into sales and marketing, and then later on we also had to do some charter flights from London to Accra and vice versa. I went on to pursue IATA training programs for people who were interested in the industry here in Ghana, and then eventually joined the mainstream Airline Management, which saw me as the country manager for Air Namibia from 2009 up to last year.
Interesting. But you've done operations, you have done cargo, you've done charter.
Yes.
What has been your drive? Why do you want to do all the other?
No, I started this industry, first of all, without any initial knowledge about the industry. But when I got in there, I felt that it was an area I really liked. And so that strong desire to know the inside out of the industry was what was driving me to try and know the various components of the industry. And so I found myself at the commercial department, sales and ticketing. I found myself at the operations department, and all together as we move along, I had the opportunity to interact with people in senior management positions, and that is how come I find myself in the present situation.
Wow.
The exposure has been very good, I must say.
Interesting. Is it an industry where you start and there is like a bottle end to it, or there are various areas that you can really look at? Because now you've actually mentioned a few.
Yes, in fact, there are various segments of the industry, and anybody who aspires to stay in this industry must endeavor to grab the knowledge from the various segments, and at the end of it, all those knowledge from the different segments will converge in order to give you the know-how that one needs at the managerial level and at top level. By so doing, you really have the confidence to really do what is expected of you as a senior manager.
Now, we are speaking to you as a senior manager. As even the country prepares to start this national airline, I mean, there are so many publications. I have a few friends who are also pushing for publications on the national airlines. A lot of people are adding their voice to it. And we know that everybody is calling for a national airline. That one we understand. But you as a senior manager, you see, you are seeing the thing from a different angle. Speak to us about preparedness towards this move.
Right.
I know.
Now,
the whole book.
Yeah, I have already said that the importance of a national airline can never be overemphasized. It constitutes a key barometer to national development. But over the period, it looks like the airline business has become the bane of sub-Saharan African countries. But then we are in a new era with new systems and a lot of experienced and qualified human resources available now, which can do things far better than before.
Okay.
Which means that if we are to set up a national airline now, things would be different from what it used to be. And I believe strongly that the country can derive a lot of benefit from it.
But how do we get ready? What are some of the areas that we should be looking at? You've mentioned the human resources.
Right. Now, the building blocks of a national airline are threefold.
Okay.
First, you look at the network.
Okay. I hope you're right.
Secondly, you are looking at the fleet.
Okay.
And then thirdly, the product.
Okay.
These are the three which constitute the building blocks of a national airline. Now, all other strategies must be aligned to this strategy in order to have a functional airline. In other words, with the fleet, the network, and the product, you have what it takes to commence a national airline.
Okay.
You are therefore in a very good strategic position to, as it were, get the business running in such a way that it can derive the anticipated goals and profit for the benefit of the country and the people there within. So, if anybody is talking about a national airline, and if you are an advocate like myself, then I would suggest we begin from this point. Once we have the network and then the fleet and the product put together, the next thing we need to consider is the human capital. Now, strategic business management theory, which is the resource-based view, considers the human capital as the most important resource for any business. When you develop the human capital, they in turn also bring out, they develop the competency, and then the competency will also create a competitive advantage. And so once the decision has been made, the next most important thing is to look at the human capital. The human capital must really fit into the organizational structure as perfectly as possible, no more and no less than what the structure can contain. And once that is done, you are good to go.
Wow. It's already interesting. I mean, we started off looking at the journey for Mr. Peter Addai, who I am speaking to now, and we've gone all the way. And as a senior manager, airline management consultant, he's actually given us a little insight, because I think this is something that if you need him, you would have to call him. I don't know, but he has decided to give us some insights of what we can do differently than what we did some years ago when he was even a staff. I mean, this particular June, as we look at transition to the new relevance, this is very insightful. Mr. Addai, thank you for today. Now we want to go into having the mindset of insight. What are some of the things we have to be doing? You are an educationist. You have been a trainer for long. What are some of the things, as new training schools are coming up, people are saying they are experts in the industry? What is your advice for all the professionals in the industry in terms of enlightenment?
Well, I said from the beginning that this is a global industry, and a lot of people started this industry from time past and have developed themselves up to a certain level now. And so therefore I would say that one of the most important things to do to ensure that this players in this industry, as it were, grow, is to link up with the professional institutions in the industry. For instance, we are talking about the International Air Transport Association, the Airport Council, and a whole lot of players in the industry. There should be that kind of collaboration and learning from each other. Now, if we are able to collaborate as an individuals and institutions, we should be able to grab a lot of knowledge from people and from institutions, and so wherever we are, we should be able to develop ourselves and the industry as a whole.
How easy is it for us to go through such a process? I mean, a lot of people don't know the process. If you are from school, maybe secondary school, is it easy to get into this industry?
Well, as I said, there are a whole lot of institutions, professional institutions. But like any other thing, as an individual, you need to, try to push yourself a bit, talk to people, talk to institutions, and you definitely have the linkages that you need and get yourself developed. Even if it is the business, the aviation business that you are interested, you certainly can get the support from the players of the industry.
Wow. It's good to know this, because sometimes we feel if you don't start well, there is no way you can be better. There are so many travel agents who used to think the travel agency is all about ticket and reservation. And now COVID-19 has happened. Airlines are restructuring. Hotels are restructuring. So it comes to that point where you realize, okay, this is not the only place I can operate. And there is more. I know you have been through all the different seasons of time, and you have something to tell us about that aspect.
Well, I want to say that this industry is one industry which operates within seasons. But the current season of the pandemic is something different. Okay. It means that we need to do things differently than it used to be. That also means that as an institution, as an individual, one will have to find out what is the new thing, or what they call the new normal that we have to be doing now. That is why we have institutions like the International Air Transport Association. And in recent times, during this pandemic, IATA has been very, very supportive. Almost every day, they are issuing out new directions, where to go, and how to even restart the industry now. Those are areas that one can learn and know how to reposition himself or herself in the industry. For instance, the aviation authorities in various countries should collaborate with the International Air Transport Association, the All African Airport Council, or AFRA, and get together, learn from each other, and I'm sure that presents an opportunity for every country to restart its aviation business and perhaps do it better than we're doing.
Sir, so I keep on hearing you mention collaboration. I don't know if it's a Ghana thing, or it's an African thing, or it's just individuals. You don't see a lot of, let me take schools for instance, schools collaborating to do something so significant in the industry. You don't see that.
Well, I want to believe that is something cultural, because when I say we Africans and Ghanaians in particular are brought up to, as it were, live in our small corner.
Okay.
But then I recall that when I started training programs, at a point I linked up with the International Air Transport Association, and then they came out with the IATA Travel Training Program, a very comprehensive program than what I was doing initially. Okay. And the institution has also helped me to reshape the kind of training that I was doing. And now people who even go through my school finish and they have an international diploma which can be used anywhere in the world. And so I'm saying that we should take the initiative to link up with institutions, and we will learn a lot of things from these global institutions, which will help us to develop our industry.
So this is going to be a difficult question. So if I have a school, okay, not that I have a school, but in case somebody like me has a school, and yes, we will know all the practicality, but we want to bring this experience that you carry together with the theories that we teach. Is it easy to approach you? Is it easy to come to you and say, Mr. Addai, this is my school, this is your travelers. Can we do something together?
Let me say that, first of all, I am available and ready to collaborate with any individual or any institution, as long as our objective will be to develop the industry in our area. And I also know that if anybody is making any attempt either to IATA or to ICAO, which is the International Civil Aviation Organization, or even to the AFRA headquarters, in whichever area in this industry, I know they are able to offer the necessary support and assistance. And so we should not continue to live in our small corner, but get in touch with the experts in the industry. Let me come back to what I said earlier on. This is a global industry, and therefore there are different expertise from different people all over the world. It is only by collaborating that you derive the expertise that you want in the industry. So I stress, let's collaborate. Let's get in touch with each other and expand our base.
Wow. It's mind-blowing when we see a senior man like you deciding to go beyond what you have done and say, okay, my new relevance, I want to make sure that people around me, people who are not even close to me, can also do better. Thank you. We don't have a lot like that, so we are really grateful for that. And I want to find out if we are the risk factor of this industry. Because sometimes, like in Namibia, you start and it folds up.
Right.
That's it's serious.
Yes. Now the risk factor in the airline industry are in twofold. We have the internal risk and the external risk. So for an airline, let's say for a national airline, the risk factor, first of all, would depend on the capital, the capital that is required to run the industry as good as it should be. And so to mitigate this risk factor, the stakeholders and the shareholders must endeavor to make available the resources that is needed to run the industry or the airline efficiently. Number two, internal risk is the execution of the business model. The business model developed by management to run a national airline should be very, very efficient and very, very good, and must be pursued. Quite often, especially with national airlines, it starts at a point you realize that management perhaps will go off the business model, all because maybe initially what was put in place was not working. And so it becomes a problem, and then it goes off.
But shouldn't they go back to the drawing table, re-strategize, and we start again?
That is the problem. That's why I talk about the execution. Management must be very, very ready to execute the business model to its logical conclusion. Again, stakeholders and investors must be able to provide them the ample of time to execute the business model. So where there is the need, some adjustments will have to be made to ensure that the execution of the business model is pursued to its logical conclusion. Now, the third risk level is the availability of the bilateral agreements, and therefore the route levels that must be available for the operation. Incidentally, all routes are vested in government, and so government must also provide the support that the management of every airline would need to ensure that the routes are made available at all times so that management could pursue them. Now, when you look at the external risk factor,
Sure.
the first thing that comes to mind is competitiveness.
Okay.
Sometimes you start an operation and you have some companies already on a route, and that is where they will put in place their predatory systems. Sometimes they will oversupply the available seats on the route, or they will undercut fares so that the new player will not have it easy, because you are entering into a market which they have dominated over the period and perhaps don't want you to come in. Okay. This is where the management must also really develop or make available their commercial acumen and all the skills that they have in order to withstand the kind of competition that they will face. Again, another risk factor in the aviation or the airline business is the cost of fuel. We know that the cost of aviation fuel on any operation is approximately 35% of the operational cost. Okay, so what can be done? One of the strategies is to go into hedging or try and get very fuel efficient equipment to reduce the costs of aviation. And then finally, it may be necessary to adjust the fuel surcharge that is placed on the fares on a particular route. So these are some of the risk factors that goes with running a national airline. And let me stress that in all situations, there are ways to as it were, combat or to mitigate the risk that goes with the industry. Once you have the right management team in place, systems can be put in place in order to mitigate the risk and get the business running as profitable as it may be.
I'm just sitting here looking at you and I'm saying this man is so full of not just wisdom as a father, but professional expertise. And I'm just admiring. I'm just doing that.
I'm still learning as a student of the industry, so day in and day out, I'm still a student.
Yeah, so look at all your students. And viewers, if you don't know, I'm allowed to say it, okay? I think that the workforce we have in most of the airlines here, you have students all across. I mean, you have students on British Airways, you have students Emirates, you have students, you tell.
No, you are right. A lot of people have passed through my hands and are in very strategic positions in the industry, especially in Ghana. And I think it all boils to the fact that people who really want to be in the industry must commit themselves at all times to learn on the job, to learn from other people, and to try and gather information as they move along. Once you commit yourself in this particular way, you are likely to reach your goal as a player or as a student in the industry.
So confession, I'm also a student from this great man, and say, although I know there are good aviation schools around, there is something unique about learning from you in particular. I know you would say the grace of God, we pray, we know, but there is this particular thing where you are able to transfer the skill that you get from the aviation industry into any other profession. How do you do that?
Well, as I said, I am also a student and I'm always learning. New things are coming up in virtually all industries. So sometimes you only need to sit quietly and observe. Through the observation, you pick up the new things and then you can replant it at other places. But it is very important to mention that technology has played a big role and has brought a lot of changes in the aviation industry over the period. When we started, we were doing things manually, but now whether in the commercial side or operation side, virtually every role is played very well through technology. So if you are a player or a student or a worker in the industry, you must advance your knowledge in technology, because virtually every segment of the aviation industry has been taken over by technology. So I would advise that all of us, especially those of us who have been in the industry for such a long time, we need to make every effort to update our know-how. Fortunately, those of you who are young are playing with technology already, and so I guess it makes things easier for some of you to advance your career easily in the industry.
Wow. I am blown away. I have really enjoyed the interview. I hope I've asked all your questions. If I haven't, please drop them in the comment section and we'll definitely get back on them. But today has been lovely.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. I'm also thankful to you for this opportunity.
I think we'll be back. I really think we'll be back because the next session we will be looking at development, and we want to know how to be better than who we are as industry players in different sectors. When we talk about tourism, it's not only even the airline, but I mean there is so much to do. Hotels need to begin to develop better. Cargo section needs to develop better. We have travel agencies who are now looking for what to do. I mean, there's so much more to talk about. And we know you would definitely give us words of wisdom, the grandpapa himself.
I'm always available and ready to share the little knowledge I have with you. So come when you must come, and let's dialogue once again.
Great. So before we close, do you have some final words for us? And when we say us, we are plenty. So as students, give us something. As business people, give us something. As industry stakeholders, please give us something.
My final words will be the fact that we are now in a new age. Everything around us is changing. And so even as stakeholders, as decision makers, as government officials, as students, we must not forget that things are being done differently globally. And so what used to be the old situation, let's say in the former Ghana Airways, is gone. There's a new situation now. We can do things differently to derive the results that is anticipated. For the many people who have passed through my hands, I say that don't give up, move on, pursue your objective by committing yourself to learn all the new techniques, and where you require some kind of additional training, don't hesitate even to submit yourself to the people who have the know-how, and then update yourself. That is the only way you can become relevant in this industry, which keeps on evolving.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Wow. I keep on saying wow because that time where you come and you hear so much wisdom, and it's not theory or practical, it is a combination of the two, and we can only say thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. From what Mr. Addai has been saying, I mean, the constant we have in this life is change. And as we transition to the new relevance, let's just go back. Let's look at our strengths. Let's develop it. Let's open our minds to the new ways of doing things. But don't forget about who you are. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.